So I went through and tested every perk currently within Warzone, except for the 2 that are currently locked behind events, which I'm sure we'll test later on once they're added. And spoiler, some of them basically do little to nothing, and you should probably switch up your perks after this video. We'll start off with perk 1, and even though those 2 perks haven't been added, we already kind of have an idea what they do. Veteran will basically be a version of Battle Hardened, and Reflexes is a nerf version of Flex. Gonna have that delays triggering explosives, which I think will be a little bit more important when you get specialists, but less so into actually dedicating a perk to it. So first off, from the perks that are available, Grenadier is a combination of Shrapnel and Strong Arm, which is kind of cool because I don't think Strong Arm was a very popular perk, nor was Shrapnel. So they kind of combined them. You get the increased throwing distance of about 15 meters. When I tested this in game, it went from 45 meters up to like 53, which went in line with what exactly the game says. It's also going to give you that little bit of a trajectory so you can kind of see the direction of the throw before you actually release the trigger. And then in addition, it also slows the delay of healing from 5 seconds up to 10 seconds, which is an eternity. When you actually look at how long it takes to do that health regeneration, it takes forever. Hopefully you don't get hit on the negative side of that because there isn't a counter even with Bomb Squad, which we'll talk about once we get to perk 2. Dexterity is probably the most commonly used perk currently because it's so good in Black Ops 6 multiplayer, but basically in this version of the game, it doesn't really do anything. It's supposed to have that combination effect of Primed, which wasn't really all that used in Mountaineer, which was super popular, but unfortunately in the testing, there's no noticeable difference in the weapon motion from jumping, sliding, or diving, and will hopefully get fixed at some point later on. The Mountaineer portion was super disappointing because it is either heavily nerfed or it's incredibly bugged. Previously it would double up your lethal fall height, but now it's only increasing it by about 15%, which for this game, you can fall to your death about 14.5 meters. And this is going to bump you up to about 16.5 meters, which essentially makes this perk nearly useless. Scavenger gets a buff, and finally including fully loaded weapon perk that we had back in Modern Warfare 2019, which means you're going to start with max ammo, and then for ARs, that means you're going to have 360 ammo in reserve in addition to the magazine for the weapon. Enemies also drop these little scavenger packs that look kind of like backpacks filled with money, and it will include ammo. Both of your equipment, you're going to get a +1 to. You're going to get an additional plate in addition to whatever plates they were holding, and you're going to get some extra cash. Not sure exactly how much, but it will be a little bit extra. My guess, probably only an extra 500 cash. Survivor, it's supposed to be kind of like a nerf version, even though this wasn't really a popular perk all that much. It's going to speed up your health regen from 5 seconds down to 3 seconds. So you're going to get 2-second faster health regen by default. Go around the corner, you're going to be able to heal up pretty quickly. And even though the description no longer includes that when you're downed, you'll ping the enemy player, that's carried over to this version of the game, even though it's supposed to be transferred over to another perk that we'll talk about a little bit later. It just didn't end up happening that way. You get down in this game, it's going to 100% ping the player that downed you. One nice thing about this perk is if you go down often, maybe you're the leading person on your team, they'll be able to revive you 30% faster from 5 seconds down to 3.5. That's going to bring us to the perk 2 category, and for Quartermaster, it essentially does exactly what it says. You're going to restock tacticals and lethals every 50 seconds, and this is pretty much how it works. Bomb Squad reduces explosive damage while allowing you to see enemy equipment through walls, which is a huge buff to this. Kind of get Engineer, and then you get to mark the actual things for your teammates. So if there's only one person on your team, they'll be able to see these hidden devices around the map. If you're sneaking up on somebody, you'll be able to see it, mark it for your team, and many of the items you can actually hack. Not all of them, but many of them, and you can convert them to be your own. So it's kind of like EOD with the buff because of Engineer. So for Tracker, it says see enemy footsteps, which is true, and it actually has a two-tone part of it, so it changes color the older the footsteps are, so you can kind of see where the footsteps start and where they end. It says bullets you fire mark an enemy for you and your squad. This is also true. And it says enemies that down you are automatically pinged. That part didn't make it into this build of the game. That is still stuck on survivors. And then it says hitting the enemy from further away increases the time they are marked. This was also something I found to be true. Initially, if they're up close, you'll get about a 3-second, and then it goes all the way up to about a 6-second the further they are away. And the furthest I can get an automatic ping was around 200 meters. It could have been buggy or something like that, but up to around 200 meters, you'll get a ping and it'll last for 6 seconds. Next up is Sprinter. It says can tactically sprint indefinitely, and that's That's basically what it is. And I feel like there's not really a lot of value in this perk, because if you get used to just swapping to your melee, you can also take advantage of unlimited attack sprint. Cold-blooded, pretty good, useful perk, especially once we get into some of the later perks that we'll talk about. It counters alertness, which is pretty powerful. Immune to combat scout, which will be kind of nice. And then changes player visibility within the thermals, which is kind of what it's always done. Quick fix is pretty bugged. It does give you some of the features, but not all of them. It says killing players or inserting an armor plate immediately starts health regeneration. Only half of this is true. If you kill a player, you will get the health regeneration. If you down a player, that will not count until you actually finish off and get the full kill. When it comes to the armor plating though, it doesn't start at all. No matter how or timing, it just would not health regenerate my player when I inserted that plate. It does allow you to insert your plate one hand at a time. That allows you to still hip fire, but because the animation is different, it ends up being slightly slower, and so it ends up taking an extra half second longer to fully plate with one hand than it does with two. And that's going to bring us to perk 3, starting off with Gung Ho. Does what it says. You don't lose movement while reloading, and it allows you to reload while attack sprinting. So pretty straightforward. Next up, Resolute. Taking damage from gunfire provides a boost movement speed for a short duration to 15% movement speed. It does basically that, and the buff lasts for about 3 to 3.5 seconds. Next up, Ghost. From a player's perspective, there is no way to know if you are moving fast enough or are visible to an enemy player. You do get the outline around the minimap that tells you a UAV is in the air or an advanced UAV, but you don't really have any way to know if you're off the minimap or on the other player's minimap. But you are hidden from the enemy player from walking. I went and did the testing for this. Crouch walking will not work. Walking and above will trigger the hidden effect, so you stay off the minimap as long as they don't have an advanced UAV or bird's eye, which we'll talk about next. Also, when it comes to the heartbeat sensor and the proxy alarm, you don't actually need to move to be hidden from those. Bird's eye calls in a UAV that has a 25% larger range. It's going to boost it up to 315 meters. The distance from you to the edge of that UAV ping up from 250 meters without the perk. So it's pretty significant there. Can identify ghosted players. They'll be indicated with the standard red dot and the elevation indicator, so you know if they're either on your level, above you, or below. If they don't have ghost, then you'll get that directional indicator. Temper we've had for a while. It basically converts your 3-plate vest into a 2-plate vest, and this ends up shaving a second off the plating from 4 seconds that we talked about normally. And then it comes to the very interesting one, which is kind of super powerful but completely changed from the way it was before. If you are within 30 meters of anyone that doesn't have cold-blooded, it will say senses nearby target automatically, no matter if they're in front of you, behind you, looking at you, unaware of your surroundings, whatever it is, it'll say enemy nearby. On top of this, it tells you when you're being aimed at from any direction over 250 meters. You kind of just had to look in the general direction before, and I believe the cutoff for this previously was 100 meters, so it being well over 250 meters. Before I stopped testing the distance, 250 meters is plenty as long as the person is ADSing with their crosshairs on your character model. If they're just to the right, to the left, or above, it will not give the player an indicator, which you see these yellow lines that kind of go towards the edge of your screen. And the ADS portion also improves it, so you're not getting random flickering of somebody looking at you when somebody's down, because they can't ADS while in the down position. So it'll remove a lot of those, which is a nice quality of life. And then on top of this, the yellow screen highlights do not provide directional information. And this is kind of a buff, because now you'll know when anyone is looking at you from 360 degrees, whereas before it was just from your sides, basically off screen. Now it's 360 degrees. They can be in front of you, like in the example you see, and it'll go over 250 meters as long as they're aiming down sight. So now we've gone through them. What are kind of my favorites? I think that currently Scavenger's pretty good. I think Grenadier's pretty good, and even Survivor, but I would probably go with Scavenger. You get the guaranteed plate, you get to restock your ammunitions or stim a little bit easier, and then you'll have more ammo, so you won't have any ammo issues. Plus a little bit of extra cash, at least until dexterity gets fixed, but there are a few other options there. Next category, I don't really like Quick Fix because it relies on the down. Trackers probably gonna be the way to go. You just got to get used to using your melee weapon. You don't have to use Sprinter. And then the other one would be Quartermaster. If you're the type that you're gonna lock down an area, or you're dealing with a problem with a lot of explosives, you can go Bomb Squad. So a few different options there. And unless you feel like you're triggering alert way too often or tracker too often, you can use Cold-Blooded to kind of counter that effect. Perk 3, I'm not really kind of sure on how I want to go. I think alertness is super powerful until people start using Cold-Blooded. Bird's Eye will make it so that you can use UAVs and they're always useful. A Ghost is negated by Bird's Eye, so it kind of really sucks there. Resolute, super aggressive players trying to finesse, I think Resolute's super good. And Tempered could also be good. So this one's a very competitive category. I think for me though, I'd probably go with Alertness so that I know when somebody is at least looking at me, even if it's in front of me and it could be a little bit distracting at times, at least I'll know when I'm being ADS'd at. Let me know if you thought the video was helpful. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button. See you on the next one. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.